When international tennis star Novak Djokovic was refused entry to Australia back in January, he was held at Melbourne's Park Hotel, which is really a migrant detention center in Australia. Now, while Djokovic was allowed to leave the Park Hotel after just a few days, the refugees were not. Many of these refugees actually came to Australia as teenagers seeking asylum or fleeing war, and are now adults, having been locked up in detention ever since, some of them for 5 years, 7 years, 9 years. Australia's treatment of refugees and asylum seekers has been described by the United Nations as cruel and inhumane. Asylum seekers who arrive in Australia by boat are detained indefinitely in offshore facilities, right? So Australia operates these facilities, but they're not in Australia. They're in neighboring Papua New Guinea and Nauru, which is a very, very tiny island nation. And actually, Nauru houses the most infamous facility of them all, where conditions are so bad, people compare it to Guantanamo Bay. They call it Australia's Guantanamo Bay. So people who've worked at the facility in Nauru have described it as a prison. There's a school teacher that gave an interview and said that there are guards present at all times, everywhere, and that the children are not referred to by their names, but by numbers. So each child has to identify themselves with 3 digits and 3 letters. Now, listen to this. The staff that work there work on rotation. They tell the staff that they shouldn't work on the island at this detention center for more than 3 weeks at a time because it's bad for their psychological health, right? And that they should leave the island to take breaks. Well, hold on a second. If it's bad for the staff to stay there for more than 3 weeks, how is it okay then for the refugees to be kept there for years and years? What does that do to their psychological well-being? Now, just to be clear, the majority of people that are still on Nauru Island are refugees. These are people who already have been given refugee status. So that means the Australian government sat down, looked at each one of their cases, and saw that, this person has a valid reason to seek refuge. They're fleeing war, they're being persecuted, and so on. So despite being already granted refugee status, they're still in the offshore detention center. These are the official numbers from the Australian government. Let's take a look. You can see here in green, there are 83 refugees that are still detained in Nauru. So the overwhelming majority of the people in detention have already been granted refugee status. And these figures are very recent. They're just from April 2022. Now, some refugees were transferred to Australia from these detention centers in Papua New Guinea and Nauru, but they were taken to another detention center, which is located in Melbourne's Park Hotel, so they could get medical treatment. So this entire scheme, this program was called a Medevac. Now, just to be very clear, this is a hotel. It's a Park Hotel, but it's been repurposed and transformed into a detention center right in the middle of the city. Now, I interviewed one of the refugees that was in this Melbourne Park Hotel while they were in the Park Hotel, and his name is Mehdi Ali. So Mehdi spent 9 years in various Australian detention centers. His entire youth in detention, from the age of 15 when he arrived back in 2013 until now in 2022. 9 years from the age of 15 in detention. And then he was eventually transferred to this Park Hotel detention center in Melbourne. Now, fortunately, since the recording of this interview, Mehdi was released. And he was taken in by the United States, actually, not Australia, under a resettlement scheme. Now, Mehdi was released shortly before all of the Park Hotel was closed, okay? And all of the refugees were finally freed. However, I never got the chance to release this full interview, so I'm doing it now. And you need to understand the conditions that he and the other refugees were forced to live in were literally horrendous. The detainees, they would find mold and maggots in their food. They wouldn't be allowed to leave the hotel or even to open their windows for fresh air. The windows were sealed shut. Now, even though the refugees from Park Hotel were fortunately released, Australia's inhumane treatment of refugees has not stopped because the offshore detention centers, including the one on Nauru, are still functional, right? They're still keeping refugees, genuine refugees that have been granted refugee status, detained in offshore facilities in utterly inhumane conditions. Mehdi, thank you so much for coming on the program. We really appreciate it.
Hi, man. How are you?
Mehdi, could you tell us perhaps where you're joining us from, You are in Australia, but where in Australia specifically?
Thanks for having me, inviting me to your program. Right now, I'm in Melbourne, Park Hotel Detention Centre.
I know there's been a lot of interest from people from the media because an international tennis star, Novak Djokovic, was also there for a few days. But I want to know more about you and the other people, the refugees, the asylum seekers who are in this detention center. Mehdi, could you maybe give us a brief background about how long you've been staying in this Park Hotel, how long you've been in detention, and how you came to be there?
I came to Australia when I was 15 years old by myself at 22nd of July 2013. And since then until now, I've been in detention. I was in Christmas Island when I arrived Australia by boat. I arrived Christmas Island, and I was in Christmas Island about around 9 months. And then they sent me to Nauru when I was 16 years old, and I was in Nauru around 6 years, which it was a terrible experience. And then under the Medivac bill around more than 2 years ago, I came to Australia. And since then until now, I've been in detention, which I was in Brisbane detention center. Then they sent me to Melbourne detention center, and briefly I've been in Park Hotel detention center.
I mean, you've effectively grown up. You've gone from a teenager to an adult male. In what conditions? Incarcerated?
In survival conditions. In absolute survival conditions. Not like as the rest of teenagers or child. Like I did not received any of my child rights, teenage rights. And basically, yeah, I was just basically surviving the whole journey until now. I'm trying to survive, to be honest, and I'm sick of surviving. I want to leave instead of, to experience life as it is, not experience it as a person in a cage.
The way that you've been treated by the Australians, by the refugee and immigration services, would you say that this is a fair way to treat someone who is seeking asylum in Australia?
I'm going to say it's fair or not. Probably that's not a good judgment for me. But I ask you, do you think detaining a child as 15 years old in terrible, terrible conditions, without any education, without any proper health care, detaining him for 9 years because he's illegal, which I don't understand the harmony between the two words, illegal and migrants. But as the government's been saying, we're illegal. But don't you think 9 years of being in terrible conditions in an indefinite detention, don't you think it's a long punishment for such a crime?
And the conditions that you've been living in, not just in the Park Hotel Detention Center now, but in general, the other facilities and places that you were sent to as well, how would you describe the living conditions? Would you describe them as hygienic? Do you have access to medical care, recreation, visits? Are you ever allowed to leave?
Well, we cannot leave the building. This place is designed as a prison, but called detention because it's under care of Australian Border Force. And it's indefinite, which in prison, basically you get a sentence, so you can manage your time until your day. But here we get no sentence and no explanation. And the quality of life, I have to mention that I think the quality of life in detention is not the issue. The issue is detaining innocent people as they never committed no crime for 9 years and unjustly and cruelly. I think that's the main issue. And the quality of life here, we just try to survive. I mean, what we do, all I'm doing is like laying down on the bed, lately I've been busy with the media, doing interviews, writing, reading articles, reading people messages and comments. And that's pretty much what I do. Sometimes watching movies or reading a book. The days here are kind of repeating. Everything is repeating. And we receive the same data every day. So we've been receiving the same data. For me, it's been a long time. The same thing: guards, path search, handcuffs, ABF, refugee case, asylum seeker case. The same data over and over. And I'm far, far away from the life, because I've been away from the life around 9 years. So what I'm basically trying to do here, I'm trying to stop thinking for some period of time. So before the media, I used to study music. I used to practice guitar. I used to read, still reading, less than before. Watching movies, trying to sleep as long as I can, even though I have sleeping problems. And as I said, the issue is the cruelty, the detention, detaining people indefinitely without no reason, or for such a shallow, unexplained. They don't even explain the reason. It's such a shallow reason, which they try to save people's life of drowning in the ocean. And for that cause, they're using the method, and that method is destroying my life. And I don't think it's such a ethical way to save one life by destroying another life. Not just destroying, torturing.
So is that what they've told you? The government says that to stop people from coming to Australia and drowning, they need to keep you and other refugees confined indefinitely. That's their justification?
I heard that statement several times from the politicians in the parliaments and stuff. That's the excuse of, so no more people going to die, let's send them to offshore. And by the way, thousands of people came by boat after the policy. They've been settled in Australia. The majority of the people that came, they are settled in Australia with different types of visa. Some got bridging visa, some got community detention visa. And there's like dozens of us, like a minority, left in offshore and onshore. No one got no answers for our questions.
Why do you think it's you guys who've been singled out? Why do you think other people were able to get visas and you guys were deprived of having a new life?
No answers. I've been asking them, they're saying it's up to the minister. So it's basically minister, you can choose, I guess. That's basically how it works. There's no elements, fundamentals to release people. It's so random. It's really random. It's like they don't care. They're like, doesn't matter, just 4 of them, get 4 of them out. Something like that, maybe. Because until now, I don't know how they release people. Same situation, same circumstances, same positions, same age, same diseases in some cases. One person is getting out, the other is going to stay in the detention. And even if, let's say, if that person is going to get released, is he going to be happy about his freedom? I believe it's going to be the worst kind of freedom. So you leave this place and you're going to leave behind you people that they were with you in the same circumstances and the same situation. So the freedom itself is kind of punishment too.
Why do you think the government is able to get away with this? How do the Australians justify this to themselves? You said that They don't give you any kind of rationale. Do you think it's maybe ineffectively run, or there's something malicious going on? What's your gut feeling?
From my own perspective, I think billions of dollars are involved. It's crazy money, man. Crazy money, especially in offshore. You have no idea how much money they spent on this policy. You have no idea how much money they're spending for us to keep us here in this building. So I could say that, it could be that. It could be for the sake of policy. I don't know. I just mentioned the thing, I received so many live interviews during the time Djokovic came all over the world, England, US, other countries, Italy. But I never received no live interview in Australia. I've never done one. They never offered me to do a live interview. Ever. Even like for Project and ABC, they record me and then they keep cutting and they just, they do and I never received no live interview in Australia. And that's a big question mark to me.
And how does that make you feel that Djokovic came to Park Hotel Detention Center, where you have been, and he gets all the attention, but you and the other refugees who've been detained for years, shuffled around, and who are in the exact same facility as him, you don't get the same kind of attention?
Well, I was shocked when I found out Djokovic is here, to be honest. And I guess he deserved to get attention because he's the best after all. And it's not easy to be best in tennis for a long time. But yeah, he gets the attention and he deserves that. But we deserve the attention more. Why we deserve the attention more? Because a humanitarian disaster is happening here. Actually, crisis happening here. It's really tragic. And that's the ethical way which media can cover such a story, but not because of whatever they're doing, how the propaganda works, not because of that cause, but because of the ethical point of the humanity. And which I think I don't blame Djokovic because of the tension. I blame the media.
So the media who've contacted you to do interviews in the last weeks, did most of them ask you about yourself and how you're doing, about the other refugees, or were they only interested mostly in Djokovic?
To be honest, just the first day until I tweeted that tweet, they were interested in Djokovic. But after that tweet, they asked me about me. And also they ask about Djokovic. They have to put it in the story, so their story is going to get sold. Except I have to say this because I'm not afraid of anyone. 9 News, I think. There's a reporter, there's a guy, he called me, said, I'm interested in your story. Let me do an interview with you. I'm not gonna say his name. So he did sit with me, and then he just started asking questions and questions about my life and about my journey and all these things. And I was just explaining, And it's not an easy thing for me to explain my journey over and over, because to people it's a story, but to me it's my life. So I was just explaining. And then he asked me about Djokovic, and I just answered. And then in his report, he just cut the Djokovic thing. And I was really upset when I saw that. I was like, he obviously he used me. He used me for his report, and he did not mention us. He just maybe said refugees in this building. And then I commented about Djokovic, and that's it. And the rest of the news was about Djokovic. And that was the same day that I tweeted the tweet. Yeah, and that's really upsetting.
I've seen a lot of guys with underlying health issues. For example, their gums are bleeding and they can't go to the dentist. If it's not too personal, are there some things that you've had to deal with medical issues, underlying issues where you needed medical treatment and they wouldn't give it to you, or they made it difficult to get?
Yeah, definitely. I have a medical issue which I've been dealing with it for a long time actually, and it's really simple. If I was free, I could do it in 1 day or two, but in detention, it's been months, and I haven't received no treatment for it. Well, eventually, a few days ago, they offered me the treatment, but they said if you go into the appointment and you're done, and then when you come back, you have to do quarantine. But then I said, because when I'm going, they're going to escort me, the guard, circle security, 2 or 3 of officers going to escort me. And they sit next to me. We go with the same car. Even when I see the doctor, they're going to stand next to me with their cameras and their reports and stuff. And they're going to hold my arm while I'm walking in the public. And that's how they're escorting me. And I said, are the circle guards going to do quarantine? They said, well, we take taste of them. They do the temperature thing. And I was like, that's unreasonable. Like, why should I do quarantine? And the same people with me, they're not doing the quarantine. And I'm sure COVID has nothing to do with citizens and non-citizens. So, and I believe if the guard's going to do quarantine, I'm going to do the quarantine. I have no problem with that. Me, myself, I got vaccinated twice, 2 doses. But I see it's really, it's illogical. 4 people at the same place, at the same journey, one of them going to do quarantine, 3 of them, they going to be whatever they want to be. And then they said, we'll get back to you. They never did.
Mehdi, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you sharing all of this with us. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, evening.
Another refugee, Tanush Silvarasa from Sri Lanka, was first detained in 2013 on Manus Island in Papua New Guinea for 6 years, and then in the prison Hotel Mantra in Melbourne for another year. He was finally released in January 2021. Today, Tanush Silvarasa is a human rights activist for people seeking asylum and an ASRC, Asylum Seeker Resource Center, human rights intern. First of all, thank you for joining me on the program. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I'm happy to share my experience with you, and people have to know about our situation and my friend's situation after we came to Australia. What will happen after we free from detention, long term here? What will happen in community? I'm happy to share my experience and my friend's experience as well.
I'm very grateful. Could you maybe tell us how you came to Australia and how you came to be in detention?
Yes, first of all, my name is Tanush. I'm a refugee from Sri Lanka. I came to Australia 2013 by boat for seeking asylum and safety. Unfortunately, I reached Australia after 19 July. They make the policy that law is if anyone come to Australia after 19 July, they transfer to offshore processing center. They will never ever settle in Australia. This is a policy they've made. But I wouldn't know about that. My friends also know about that policy. Unfortunately, we transfer to the offshore processing center, and it's very difficult. I couldn't imagine how was this being in offshore processing center. It's much very difficult, and we were lost our 6-year life in there, and 13 innocent of people life also we were lost in that island.
So 6 years you were in detention?
Yeah, I was 6.5 years in detention offshore processing center. Then I transferred to Australia to under the Medivac law. Then I spent my year in here 1.5 years. So totally I have spent my lifetime in detention for no reason, 8 years.
Wow. Which facilities were you in? Because you said you were first in offshore detention. Where was this exactly? Which facility? And when you were transferred by medevac to Australia, where did they send you then?
This is a story about they transfer to offshore processing center if anyone come to Australia by boat. Then unfortunately, my friends transferred to offshore processing center. It's look like island, like a prison island, like it's a everything out of our control. We can't do anything, lack of medical facilities, and day by day deny our freedom in there, and our day by day we were destroyed mentally and physically. It's very difficult to explain the feeling of what inside the indefinitely detention. That's why 13 of my friends were lost their life on that island because of mental health issue and medical issue. That's why after that we were lost 13 innocent people life in there. Then finally in Australia they passed the law. If anyone affected with this sick, they can transfer to Australia under the Medivac law. That's a law they passed. Then in that law, some of my friends were moved to Australia from offshore processing center under the Medivac law. I am one of them.
Right, and you're saying you lost 13 of your friends on the island. So once you were already in detention, is that correct?
Yeah, some of them the depression and mental health issue, they killed themselves, and some of them did not get the proper medical treatment. They were lost their life in there. These are all the details on the news. You can search on Google who were lost on their life on also for 13 innocent people life. Each time I mentioned that I never forget they being with us, being with me, and we were like brothers. But I can't forget them. Really, their very young life, they were lost on that island. Unfortunately, we escaped from that. But yeah,
I'm very sorry to hear that. That's very heartbreaking. So, I mean, what were the conditions like? How were you treated in detention? You know, how was it living inside of this kind of prison, not even knowing when you will be released?
This is a very big depression and challenge to being indefinite detention with no reason. But now the people very well understand how difficult to being in quarantine for 14 days. But we were in detention 6.5 years with no reason. We don't know when we're gonna release. What is our fault? This is a thing, is day by day destroy our hope and dream, and we were really affected with mentally and physically. How we treated inside we have to waited for the long line to get the phone call to talk our family, and we get chance to talk family 1 week once time. This in detention life. If how I explain that, this like a prison camp. We called by not a number, not our name. We last 8 years I called by a number, not my name.
They don't even say your name. They just give you a number.
Yeah, they call the number, call by number. But this is a very quite pain. But we were separate from our family long term years. But they call by number day by day and we waiting for the phone call to talk our family for 1 week one time. The internet also is an offshore processing center. It's very difficult. It's a different type of punishment to us. I can't explain the feelings how much difficult to being in there indefinite detention. This is a punishment like without bleeding, cut our neck. This is I don't know how to explain that feeling. Really very hard and pain.
How did it impact your mental and your physical health?
Totally, but that's why I transferred to Australia under the Medivac law, because I was affected with mentally. It's a long-term detention is make me feel very bad condition. Then I transferred to Australia to under the Medivac law. After I transferred to Australia under the Medivac law, I wouldn't expect they're gonna put to me into the hotel quarantine for 1.5 years without fresh air and sunlight. It's make me very feel bad in that situation. So with no reason, we don't have fresh air and sunlight. It's a quarter quarantine for 1 year. It's make me very bad situation. Still, some of my friends have been in same condition. Couldn't imagine how much they have pain in their life.
So they put you in this hotel detention center, and the windows are sealed shut. You can't open them for fresh air, and you're not allowed to go outside and get any sunlight. That's it. These are the conditions that they put you in.
Yeah, this is a condition I was in there, but it's a very difficult. We can't open the window. We can't get the fresh air. We can't get the sunlight. I don't know, brother. This is a pain we have. Some of my friends still having that pain. Now people understand very well how difficult to being in quarantine for 14 days or 7 days. This is more than ever we have the pain on that day.
How did you get out of detention? Can you maybe tell us about the moment when you found out that you're finally free? How did you feel?
Really, I couldn't realize that I'm going to be free. But before then, 1 week, my group of people were released from detention. Before than me, they were released. But that is a day that is a long-term year. After 8 years later, I'm going to pass the message to my mother. Just I waiting for the one message to tell my mother for 8 years. Hello, my mom, I am free. I have been waiting for 8 years to tell that message. Not only me, for my other friend as well. It's a long-term years. But when I called to my mom, she was speechless. I couldn't imagine how was she happy in that moment. It's a very incredible. And on that day I called by my name with my friends. It's a very very wonderful moment on that time. When I going to release from detention, some of my friends waving the hand on the street, welcoming us. It's such a wonderful moment. It was still on that memory. Never ever gone from my mind. It's always a wonderful moment for me and my friends as well.
Yeah. And what was it like outside of detention? Can you tell us maybe what kind of visa or permit that you've been given, and what are some of the challenges or the difficulties that you face with it? Are you able to work and live normally?
Yeah. We got the temporary visa. This kind of visa, we have the rights to work, but we don't have a right to study, or we can't fly overseas. And this is a visa. This is a very big challenge, brother, because we have to renew the visa each 6 months one time. If we're going to apply for any job or company, they will expect the long-term visa holder. They don't want anyone to short-term period visa holder to work there like employee. But this is a situation we have facing day by day. And in my experience, last time I trying to get the house for rent under my name, but the 2 or 3 landowner, they reject my application because I'm on temporary visa. But it's a very difficult. This is an experience, not only mine, but some other friend as well, they got it. But I share my experience. Especially we were detained in the last 8 years. We don't have any economical background. But at the same time, we're trying to rebuild our life into the community. It's very, very difficult to rebuild our life without any economic support, because we can't get the credit from bank, because we don't have the permanent solution, or we don't have the visa. We have a 6-month visa. Each time we have to renew this. Still we have in limbo into the community. We have to face different type of challenge day by day. It's temporary visa. But I always happy to be free, but better than detention. But this is also we have been facing a challenge.
Yeah. So basically, it's very difficult to get a job or to find an apartment because they all want a permanent residency, right?
Yeah, this is a situation that if I apply for any work, they say your visa is have to renew in short-term visa. We can't accept any contract with you with long-term condition. You don't know what will happen after 6 months. We always this is a reality general thing that they are right. They want the long-term visa holder to the work, but we have a short-term visa holder. What we can do, but they're very difficult to find the job. Yeah.
And do you still speak to some of the guys who were with you in detention?
Yes, some of my friends still have been in detention. I call them and talk to them. It's a very, because I am one of them. I know the pain of being indefinite detention with no reason. But they know me and I know them. But how I can? This is the same answer they have when I was in detention. Some of my friends ask me, "Hello, how are you? When are you going to release?" But I say, I don't know. This is the answer I know each time I got when I was in detention. Same answer my friends also got, but I just ask, how is your feeling? Are you okay or something like that? That's why I kind of, because they don't know when they're gonna release.
What do you think of the way that the Australian government is treating refugees and asylum seekers?
This is unfair, brother, because anyone seeking asylum and safety, they put into the detention. If anyone put into the detention for no reason, they will be destroyed mentally and physically within a year. This is unfair. No one is going to treat like this, but they give the solution as soon as to anyone seeking asylum and safety. This is a not good way to treat the people seeking asylum and safety for long-term detention and separate from family. It's lots of pain. We were destroyed mentally and physically day by day. I don't know, it's a very, very difficult. I couldn't imagine this. I don't have any words to say. How is a feeling inside the detention. It's a very difficult, brother.
Could I maybe ask you just, what did a typical day look like for you? How would you spend your time? What were you able to do every day while you were in detention?
In daytime, I always trying to be forget some of things. I am living in detention because I was in detention, but I want to forget those things. But I don't know how to spend my time. I each time talk to my friends to trying to be happy. But in daytime is okay. When I'm going to sleep on the bed, then waking up on the tomorrow morning is a different type of pain comes to again. This I trying to be happy, but I can't. No one is can't. It's a long-term detention. So for no reason. This I trying to be forget, but I couldn't. But I always trying to manage my time in there. But I talk to my friends, and that's the way everyone have to spend time in there.
How were you treated by the staff, the people who are working in the detention centers?
Some of them they treated like rudely. Some of them treat nicely. But first time is I talked to some of officers in there. I asked some help, and they did us. But after that, year by long-term year in detention, but I don't like to talk to the much to the officers, but in there that working like guards. But I don't like to talk to them because I have a pain, but each time I hate them. To why you keep the into the detention with no reason. They don't understand our feeling. They look like they see us like we have done something in previously or something like that, but they don't know about our story, why we came to Australia, why we have been in detention, indefinite detention for no reason. But they look like us a different view, but they don't know. But I did not talk much to the guards in there.
They looked at you like you were criminals or something, or?
Yeah, some of them, they don't know, but exactly they don't know why we are here in detention. But they are working like guards. They don't know about our own story, why we came to Australia. Why, if they're thinking, oh, this guy is being in long time detention, he has done something in previously or something like that, they thought. But this in my experience, when I was in detention center, I got an appointment from doctor for the medical treatment. They take to me the hospital with guards and with a handcuff. But in front of public, they lock me with the handcuff to take to the hospital. It's a anyone see me, they think oh, this guy have done something. But on that moment, tears fall from my eyes without my permission. But after that, I denied to go to our hospital to get treatment with handcuff. But I deny my medical treatment.
So they handcuffed you when they took you to the hospital?
Yeah.
It feels very dehumanizing, right?
Yeah, this is some people, they don't know about our situation, but they're thinking like we got a good life. How we got a good life inside the detention center without pain and suffering, and so lots of pain.
What is your message to Australians? What is your message to the world? How can people help?
This is my message. Every innocent human has the rights to be free and enjoy their life. No one should have their life called indefinite detention for no reason. My friends have been in indefinite detention for no reason. They have to be free into the community. It's going to be must end. But this is the way people need to push the MP or send the letter and make the signatures and push the government to release my friends. They have been in long term in detention for no reason, to release into the community. This is the way I pass the message in time. This is very difficult to pain in being in detention for no reason.
Well, Tanush, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences, and thank you so much. I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much, brother. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Thank you. I appreciate that.